everybody. Welcome back to the Broker Life Podcast. My name is Mark Panazon, and I'm a mortgage broker with Mortgage Connection. I'm licensed in Alberta and British Columbia and have been doing mortgages for over 15 years. Today's guest is Alan G., realtor with RE/MAX Elite in Edmonton, Alberta. Alan has been with RE/MAX for 37 years and has a long list of achievements over the years, including Top 5 Teams, #1 Real Estate Agent, Circle of Legends Award, Lifetime Achievement Award, Exclusive Diamond Awards Club, and many more. Welcome to the show, Alan.
Hey, thanks very much, Mark. Happy to be here.
So let's just start off with maybe you sharing a little bit how you ended up in real estate.
Well, with 37 years of experience, that could be long, but I'll try to give you a Coles Notes version.
Sure.
I did start off with IBM, got some great sales training there. Wasn't quite for me working in a big corporation, so I went into the restaurant business, which a lot of real estate agents, as you know, some of your friends are ex-club owners, and decided the restaurant business wasn't for me, or maybe the restaurant business decided it wasn't my cup of tea. So I got into real estate, started off with LePage, but quickly went over to the RE/MAX system, just a good fit for me, and moved around to a couple of brokerages. It's kind of interesting because back in the day, of course, we didn't have the cell phones and the electronic lock boxes. Oh, we didn't have computers. So, it was a lot different than what it is today. The last 10 years, I think, has seen a real explosive growth in terms of technology and everything else, which makes things a lot simpler to do. DocuSign, electronic lock boxes, all those sorts of things, I think, have really simplified things, increased productivity. A lot of people, such as ourselves, kind of started the team concept. So we have Alan G. and Associates. We do consider ourselves a boutique team, and so there's, I guess, 5 of us in total. So 4 realtors and 1 real estate assistant who does all the administrative, who frees us up to kind of be in front of clients. And yeah, even my daughter has joined me now the last couple of years, and she's doing well. So yeah, real estate is good.
I've just rattled off a number of achievements there that you've had over the years. How have you managed to stay so successful and motivated over the years? What is it about real estate that really ignites you?
Yeah. Well, number one, I think I've always been the type of person who likes to run my own business. So real estate was kind of a natural fit there. I'm definitely a people person. So being able to, see a whole range of clients, from first-time home buyers getting super excited about their first property. You just see it in their eyes, their voice, their body language, all the way to, investors, high-end estate homes. And then what's really been kind of cool is, we're starting to see the different generations coming on board to the point, and I guess that kind of shows that I've been in the business for 37 years and getting a few gray hairs. Is, we're starting to sell to the grandkids and to the children of some of our original clients. So that's pretty cool. And it's just kind of that team environment, working with my own team, which I consider a second family, and now working with my daughter. That's been a real blessing to just seeing her a lot more. And so, yeah, I think, a lot of that, just it's every day is different. Yeah. So it keeps you going.
Have you ever felt it feels like real estate is a very that's the right word, maybe like stationary business, where if you start your business in Edmonton and you've grown your business to where you have, I don't want to say you're sort of committed to the city of Edmonton, but how does that impact your life decisions and deciding whether you would want to move or change careers or anything like that? Has it always just been, born and raised in Edmonton, love my career, never thought about leaving ever?
Yeah, it's interesting you asked me that, because there was a point in my career, probably in the mid 90s, that I kind of considered moving to Calgary. But kids were young. I had just gone through a divorce at the time, and so that was a decision to kind of stay closer to home. I have been, recruited by building companies to start their own real estate company. But I think a lot of it goes back to, you've developed a client base. And real estate is all about repeat business and referrals. So to start in another city would be difficult. But I am born and raised in Edmonton. So I think that's a big factor. Family and friends are all here. So to move, you know what? I love Edmonton. It's easy to get around. I go to lots of different cities in Europe and the States, Toronto and Vancouver. It's so hard to get around, and Edmonton, boy, I tell you, we worry about our traffic sometimes. It's nothing. So we have a lot of green space, lots of festivals, got a great hockey team, go Oilers next year. And so I think those are all factors that makes me stay here. Yeah, so never really considered, I don't think.
Well, I love hearing that because as mortgage brokers, we have a very similar type job, but also quite different in the sense that we don't actually have a product we're showing, and we need to be in that city. And as our family relocated to Victoria, where we are now, and there's a really high chance I'd say we're going to be back by the fall here, come back to Edmonton, and it does really have to come down to family, of course. But just the power of the network, whether that's business or personal, my whole life, I spent my whole life in Edmonton, and it's incredible. After a couple years away from people, how much you really start to miss people, and sometimes you take for granted the relationships you had. So
Sure.
I'm looking forward to connecting back with some old friends. That's great, Alan. So let's dive into the real estate market here. So if you could give a quick little snapshot in a couple minutes or less, how would you assess the overall market right now in Edmonton? Would you say, there's always those terms of balanced market, seller's market, buyer's market. Where do you kind of see it, given your experience and what's been going on the last couple of years with COVID, inflation, et cetera? How's Edmonton doing right now in real estate?
Okay. And to answer that, I guess, if I just kind of quickly backstep to what Korea Canadian Real Estate Association is saying, the average price in Canada has gone up by $100,000 this year, up to $716,000. If you take out Toronto and Vancouver, that price would almost drop by 100 grand. If you compare that to the Edmonton market, we're sitting, hovering around that $400,000 average price. So, Edmonton is the most affordable major city in Canada, and has been for a long time and remains that way. It's very affordable. So I mention that just because, our market, has a disconnect to much of Canada. When you hear the frontline headlines talking about the market going up and skyrocketing and multiple offers. Yes, we're starting to see some multiple offers. We just had one on one of our own listings yesterday. So we are getting into a market where, we went from a super strong seller's market with 2 months of inventory last year. We kind of quickly transitioned into teetering onto a buyer's market by late fall because of the interest rates. And now, we're back at 3.4 months of inventory, which is a balanced market teetering back onto a seller's market. We did that all within 12 months. My prediction, our sales have really spiked in the month of May. I guess we're in already. The year is going really fast. So, I predict we're going to see our months of inventory drop to about 2.5 to about 2.75. So we're definitely going to be in a seller's market heading into the summer months. So, if you compare it to last year, yes, everything's down, but last year and 2021 were record years. But if you look at the 5-year average, 2023 is doing okay. And now the sales are really spiking, and we're going to see almost 2,800 sales in the month of May, which is only going to be down about 2.5%, maybe 3% from last year's record months. So I don't know. Things are really hard to predict right now, but it looks like a busy summer for us here.
Would you say that if we're starting to return to a little bit more balanced market, but still on the edge of a seller's market, do you think things will normalize a little bit next year once inflation further reduces and interest rates hopefully come down a bit?
Mhm. Actually, I think, we will see a pickup next year if those things happen. It's weird because inflation and I'm really into numbers and statistics, and I really thought, the April inflation was going to drop again from the 4.3%, but we went up to 4.4%. So, don't know what the Bank of Canada is going to look. Hopefully they'll continue their pause, because that's what's kind of increase the activity in the market. But I think and we will see interest rates drop next year. If oil prices stay up, I do believe, the Edmonton market's going to see an increase next year and get even busier as things normalize.
Mm, I couldn't agree more. And I too think that on the June 7th meeting, the bank will, I think they'll continue to pause, and maybe might want to see one more month of inflation data before
I
they decide.
I think so too. I don't think you can base it on 1 month, and especially when a lot of it is the inflation is based on food and gasoline prices.
Yeah. Let's talk immigration and migration. I got some stats here. So, if you look at any migration chart into Alberta, it's just off the charts the last couple of years. I've got two stats here. About 20,000 people moved to Alberta from other provinces in Q4 last year, mostly Ontario and BC. And obviously that speaks to the property values in those two provinces. And in terms of international immigration, Alberta added 30,000 people in Q4. So about 50,000 people in the last 3 months of last year. How is that affecting the supply challenge? Supply is an issue across Canada, but how is it particularly impacting Alberta, given that it's such an affordable economy, affordable place for real estate? You got this influx of people coming into the market. Is that going to continue with your thesis of driving prices up and be a little bit more of a seller's market?
It definitely is. Alberta led the nation again, in net migration last year, both, interprovincial and international. Plus, we actually had the highest birth rate across Canada.
No way.
So, and I think that speaks to the young age of our population. So, our growth will be, high. 160,000 was the net immigration number for 2022 last year. Those are huge numbers. Now, Edmonton is going to get its share, but a lot of them are going to Calgary, which has a super shortage of listings right now. And they're running in that 1.5 months of inventory right now. But we are getting our share. We're seeing buyers from Toronto, Vancouver, Kelowna. So people are definitely coming here and buying homes that are much more affordable. For $700,000, you could buy yourself 2,800 square foot with a double attached garage. In Toronto, you're looking at maybe an 1,100 square foot older bungalow with a single detached garage. Or actually, that's about for $1.2 million. For 700, you're actually getting a townhome. So, and 700 square feet, because I know, because my niece just sold hers in Toronto for around that price range.
Yeah, and I can speak to it too in Victoria. 700,000 is like a 1 bed, 1 bath condo downtown. And trying to get into the detached market here, it's $1 million up. And the homes aren't like the homes in Edmonton. I mean, they're older, a lot of work needs to be done. Not ideal lots sometimes, and busy roads and stuff. So that's a good segue to the next question, which is demographics. So with all the migration into Alberta, are the demographics changing in terms of retirees versus younger families? Like who exactly are buying homes that you're noticing over the last couple of years? Is it the same old mix of Albertans, or is it now maybe a little bit older populations that can't afford the more expensive cities and they're moving to Alberta? Or is it the younger families who can't afford it? Or is it just a combination of both?
I think it's really a combination. I mean, we're not seeing a slowdown in first-time home buyers. On the other end of the spectrum, I'm really not seeing a slowdown, much of a slowdown. I mean, we're definitely seeing something on the high-end homes. Even a lot of the seniors that we're seeing, for sure, they're downsizing, but a lot of them are actually upsizing. You know,
Interesting.
I think, it's just a time in their life that they want to reward themselves. And if you're financially set up, why not? We're definitely seeing some younger people, but we're seeing a lot of families, coming from the other cities. And we already touched upon that, based on the affordability. One interesting, market, my favorite economist, Benjamin Tall,
Yeah,
had kind of
BC.
pointed out, yeah, he's awesome. He pointed out, one factor that we don't think about is there's a lot of people from other countries who are just getting their papers now. And so, that's a fairly big number. And as he puts it, they've already got jobs, they've got savings, and those people are now entering into the market as well. So, I think we're seeing a real mix of things. We are seeing more investors coming into Alberta as well because of the affordability factor.
Mm, that's fascinating. And you got to think that politics probably plays a role here at some point into, um, I guess, policy around new building, new starts, making the process a little bit easier. And that's obviously been
Mhm.
a massive issue. It seems like the government over the last, I don't know, 5 years has really tried to focus on the demand with foreign tax implications and different taxes and things like that. But they really haven't addressed the supply side that much, right? So I
No.
don't know if that is going to require a complete change in the next election, or they'll just
Yeah.
start to finally understand that, if you're going to immigrate all these people in and open doors Canada, we got to do something about this housing crisis, because it sounds like rents as well is another problem.
Exactly. And you're 100% right because they've been focusing, on the demand. The foreign taxes and all those things, they really aren't impacting the sales. It's so insignificant. And if you're bringing in, I can't even remember the numbers, if it was 500,000 a year that the federal government wants to bring in, like, holy smokes, like, where are you going to put everyone?
Where are they going to live?
And
Yeah.
you're right. There's a lot of red tape. We're behind in land supply. We're just coming out of the supply shortage, caused by the pandemic, for materials. So yeah, we're definitely going to have a shortage. If anything, they're creating more demand, and the price is going to go up even further.
Yeah.
I really don't know how they're addressing it. I don't see anything significant. There's lots of talk, but I don't really see anything happening.
Perfect storm. Yeah. And that's where, we rely on OSFI, which is the regulator for financial institutions, and we get a lot of feedback from them. What are they doing to help the mortgage market? But it's kind of a two-way street. It sounds like the MPC, the Mortgage Professionals Canada Association, that mortgage brokers are a part of, is really pushing for certain things to help mortgage qualify. And one of them is the 30-year AM back on high
Mhm.
ratio mortgages. But if you really think about it, you know, the debt issue is not going to change. So really now you're just getting people into even more debt by extending it. So I used to be convinced that we need 30-year AMs for first time home buyers, because they're still going to be 50, 60 by the time the thing's paid off. But I'm not so sure that's really a solution. And that's kind of like the stress test was
Yeah.
another one.
Yeah.
Stress tests seem to be, oh, this is horrible. Now we got to qualify at these higher rates. But really, without the stress test, imagine the trouble we'd be in. Not too different than the U.S. issue in 2008 there, right? So,
Yeah, absolutely. I thought the same way. We were up in arms, but in a way, it's kind of a bit of a savior. And I doubt they're going to go to the 30-year amortization, because to me, that's just going to increase demand again.
yeah.
You know, we're going to get through this little squeeze point where the interest rates went way up. And another year we'll be through that squeeze point because the rates will come back down when people are renewing. So I think we just have to hold the course. It's like you said before, it's all about the supply issue at this point. Demand is there.
Okay, so let's talk rates then. You touched on it a little bit. So interest rates in 2019 were around 3%, 3.5%, something like that. Got around 1% in 2021 on some of those variables, and then back up to about 5%, whereas where we're at right now, give or take. So how, from your perspective, when speaking with buyers specifically, how do they view the interest rate dilemma that we're in right now, and what might happen in the next couple of years as we think rates will come down? How are people treating
Yeah.
it?
Well, for sure, as you can see by our numbers, it definitely dropped the demand, by about last summer as the rates went up. We used to have 5-year fixed rates of like 1.79, and then we spiked over 5%. So definitely that affordability factor affected it. I think, when the government finally stopped increasing prices and just kind of let things go flat, and again, June 7th, hopefully they'll continue that trend. I think people kind of realize, hey, maybe this is a good time to jump in. They aren't going up anymore. All the forecasts are that will go down by the end of the year, for sure, sometime next year. I think people have also come to the realization that we won't come back down to those 1.79% fixed rates, but maybe we'll normalize at around 3%, which when you look at history, that is still really cheap money, like really cheap. So
Yeah.
I think, people are starting to get used to things, just as long as they don't start to go up again. But, everyone wants to own real estate. All the statistics show that. And generally, it's cheaper than renting because rents have really started to spike along with the interest rate. So, again, to me, I'm a believer in home ownership, not just because I'm a realtor. I do believe in it.
Do you sometimes pull your hair out a little bit when you hear people struggling with the idea of 5% rates or 4% rates, when with your experience, you were experiencing much higher rates in the, I guess, 80s it would have been, and probably not
Mhm.
well, right?
Sure. Yeah. Yeah. And that's what we try to remind them. We try to show them graphs of what the history of the rates were, and that, really it's very affordable. We just got spoiled,
Yeah.
we just have to live within our means. But, we do explain to them where we think it's going to be and where it's not going to come back down to. So I think, it's a lack of information for a lot of people. And as we get the message out there and people start to see buyers coming back into the market, it's going to be that old bandwagon, sheep following the herd, and people will get back on board as you're seeing it right now in the last couple of months.
Unemployment numbers are strong in Edmonton and Alberta at 5.7%. And that's pretty consistent across the country, really. How does this impact the greater economy and housing? I know that the Bank of Canada looks at that number really strongly, and that's a major indicator whether they raise rates or drop rates. So is it unusual? I'm not sure how to phrase this, but is it unusual that employment is so strong, yet everybody's talking recession?
Yeah, it is weird. I mean, honestly, it's been a weird couple of years.
Yeah.
So, there isn't a lot of logic to a lot of this right now. You know, most of the people I know are employed. There seems to be jobs out there. It's just whether you want to take them or not. Definitely the skilled jobs, there's a shortage. We're seeing it in the construction industry. So yeah, it's a bit of an anomaly right now for sure.
Yeah. Trends. What kind of trends are you seeing in Edmonton with in regards to housing, neighborhoods, downtown versus suburbs, new development, older homes, etc.? Has anything changed over the last couple years with COVID? It seems like there was that push that everybody went from the core and sort of started to sprawl out. Are people
Yeah.
returning downtown, or what are you kind of seeing in that area?
Yeah. I think, and you see it in some of the union demands, of late, um, for working at home. And you're seeing it, on a professional basis with accountants and different professions. People, have really gotten used to working at home. So as much as we thought people were gonna, flock back downtown, we're not seeing it.
Hmm.
Edmonton's a little bit, maybe we're not unique. I'm hearing about it in other cities, but the pandemic really changed things in the core, which was really revitalizing, especially in the ice district. But, we're having a tough time, right now getting not just workers back downtown, but, Edmontonians to come back downtown just because of the situations. So I do believe people are going to still stay more in the suburbs. There's a lot of talk about the 15-minute city, and Edmonton being one of them. To me, I just simplify that down to a more walkable community. More stores and restaurants, in your community. I live in the Southwest, and there are so many, shopping centers, great restaurants, that, are within a 10-minute drive of where we are. There's lots of river valley parks. So I think, my belief is people are going to stay in the suburbs. There will be definitely a sector that love the downtown core, or just outside that perimeter where you're within 10 minutes walking. But, downtown, it's got to change its image to kind of revitalize it.
What about new construction? Are more people building, less people building, or is that kind of not really a factor these days?
It is, it used to be where new construction took a lot of the business, because if you can build for a similar price and get everything new, get the new colors, trends, and everything else, why not build new? Because there's, lots of amenities being built out in the, suburbs. But now, with the pandemic, prices really went up, labor went up, supply shortages, so material went up. So all of a sudden, new construction became more expensive, and you add the interest rate costs to the builders, and all of a sudden, that's where a lot of the demand, to me, started coming back to the resale market. We're seeing new construction. We do new construction as well, both on a pre-sale, custom basis on spec homes. But we're definitely seeing, I think the resales are definitely dominant.
How can you help buyers with helping them build or negotiate on new construction homes versus resale?
Yeah, I think the one thing that people fail to understand sometimes is new home salespeople. They are governed by the Alberta Real Estate Association. They are employees of the builder. Whereas, with us, if you were to retain us for new construction, we actually represent the buyer or the seller, whoever's buying the home. And so we're negotiating on their behalf. We've got lots of new construction experience, maybe help modify the plans, maybe what types of lots have better resale. You hear the old adage in real estate: location, location, location. So, we just, have people think about things, but it's just nice to have someone sitting beside them, kind of, on their side. And so I think that's what really helps.
Sometimes anyways, always get the assumption that new homes are fixed prices, but you can in fact negotiate those down.
You can, and sometimes it might be more on the upgrades or the changes. But again, that really depends on the market, because if it's a really strong market, then there is no negotiation. But if it's a buyer's market, for sure there is some. But normally there is a little bit of wiggle room. And contrary to popular belief, the realtors' commissions often don't play a factor, because the builders expect to pay an agent. They also know that the clientele that we bring in is perhaps clientele that they can't reach, out of town relocations, or the relationship that we've developed with particular buyers.
Yeah, because it seems like the new home builders are really just getting their business from walk-ins, or majority of it anyways, probably, right? Advertising or something, but
exactly. So we do bring a different market segment to them, and I think a lot of the builders do understand that.
okay. Give me your 1-minute sales pitch to live in Edmonton.
Okay. Well, I truly believe it's a beautiful city. I like the size of the city, 1 million people. Our river valley is second to none. I've done lots of traveling, and ours is absolutely stunning. A lot of people don't believe we've got a lot of good, culinary cuisine, but our restaurant scene is excellent. Sports teams, theater, I think we've got it all. Summer is probably some of the largest festivals across Canada, and some of them in the world. So I think it's a wonderful place to be.
Okay, you got Alan's approval, stamp of approval. A couple more. What is one tip that you would give somebody looking to buy a home in this market, and then one tip for someone who's looking to sell in this market?
Okay. And you know what? I'm going to give the same tip to the buyer and the seller,
Okay.
and that is probably to do your research, to interview. I know it sounds weird to say, you should interview two, three agents, but you really do need to. I think buyers and sellers need to find that perfect fit. I know my wife, if she walks into a car dealership or a new home sales show home, if she doesn't like the salesperson, she's not going to buy it. And so I think, the fit for personality, knowing that you can trust them, what they bring to the table in terms of experience and specialization, I think that's really important. People always bring it down to price, but that's not, to me, what they should be looking at. It's certainly important, but all these other factors, play such an important role.
Yeah, man. And in the mortgage industry, it's rate, rate, rate. Realtors are location, location,
I
location.
know.
It's rate, rate, rate.
Yeah.
And, we're
And
constantly trying to, uh, I guess, navigate that space, but also like redirect their attention to other topics. Because there's
oh,
probably at least a dozen topics that are equally as important, right? And rate is important. You don't want to overpay for a home. You don't overpay for a mortgage. But what about prepayment penalties or privileges or porting? I mean, there's collateral versus non-collateral. There's a number of different issues. So, um,
yeah.
sort of on that note, how can mortgage brokers or banks help you succeed? What is your relationship with the bankers, with the brokers, and what do you need from them? What do you get from them? What's the relationship like for you over the
Hmm.
years?
And and that's kind of where we really try to educate buyers. We do have, preferred trade partners that we do recommend. And in terms of the financing aspect, we actually don't deal directly with the banks that much. If the client wants to deal with the bank, for sure. But we always try to recommend that they do use a mortgage broker. A few of the reasons just being, that you can shop rates for them. But more importantly, we always say to them, it's not just the rate, it's kind of what you touched upon, prepayment privileges. I can't talk. And also just how accessible are those mortgage brokers? Because a lot of those 1-800 lines in Toronto or wherever they are, you can't reach anyone and you're always talking to someone different who's not even familiar with your file. So it goes back just like the realtors, you want to know that you can trust and depend on the mortgage broker to be working in your best interests. And for sure, interest rates are important, but hey, is 1/8%, going to make that huge difference? But then all of a sudden you get hit with a $15,000 penalty because you got transferred or you can't afford the house anymore. There's a lot of factors you have to look at.
Yeah, exactly. And as you know, I was with CIBC for 10 years. 8 years was as a mortgage specialist. And it was very random on how the change to the brokerage came to me. Somebody approached me and said, let's have a coffee, let's talk about this. And within a couple of years, I realized real quickly that I was missing a lot of the bigger picture. And I really didn't really start to get into like the macroeconomic viewpoint or just a broader picture of the industry and how things work, why rates move. You're just kind of a cog in the wheel at the bank. And
Mhm.
it's even worse when you're on the branch level because now you're not even working evenings or weekends. You're not available to your customers. So, yeah, it's definitely changed my career. And really, I feel like I just didn't have to relearn things, but you up your game when you start to understand the bigger picture. So,
You
uh,
do, for
that
sure.
so that's it for the sort of main questions. The second part of this podcast, which I like to do, is something which I call a speed round. So I'm kind of surprising you with this. And
Oh, okay.
this is more of a fun sort of topic. Just to end the call, and hopefully people get to know you a little bit better. And you don't have to elaborate on any of these, but I've come up with about 10 questions here, or this or that questions that it's always fun to kind of poke around these. So you ready?
Sure. Yep.
Okay. First one is house or condo, fixed or variable.
Typically variable, but hindsight shows us fixed might have been good, but variable in general.
In the long run. Would you pick variable now?
Not right now. I would go to a short-term fixed and wait for the rates to come down.
And you're taking the advice of your mortgage broker, I see.
Yeah, always sage advice.
Coffee or tea?
Uh, Coffee.
Coffee guy. Okay. Lift weights or run?
Ah, geez, I don't think I do either, but I do lots of pacing.
You're not the only one to say that. Morning or evening?
I'm definitely more of an evening person, I
Oh,
think.
really? Okay.
Yeah.
Uh, you're a car guy. I know you have your
Mhm.
cars. So I asked this question. I don't know if you have either of these, but are you BMW or Mercedes?
Actually, I have had both, but I'm a convert to a true Audi fan.
Audi guy. Yeah, I knew you were gonna say
Yeah.
that. What's your favorite pastime or hobby?
I love gardening and I love traveling
Hmm.
and I love food.
Yes, you do. You are a foodie. I noticed that for sure. Every time I see an Instagram with one of your foods on, I start salivating. Like, gee, Alan knows how to eat. What kind of music do you listen to these days?
It's funny. I listen to a huge range, but generally I still like, the older music. When I was in high school and university,
Give me something. What is it, like soft rock, classic rock, or pop?
I would say soft rock and definitely classic rock.
Okay.
But I do like pop. I listen to my daughters, and we'll go to the concerts. But and what's kind of cool is she also loves our music, and we'll go together to Fleetwood Mac or the Eagles.
Wow, that's great. What's the last book you read?
I'm really not a big reader, so that's kind of embarrassing.
Oh, okay.
I can't even remember the last book. I do most of my reading online, but they're typically business articles.
Any popular threads, or you did mention Benjamin Tall's one of your favorites. You do podcasts, or do you YouTube, or where do you kind of get your information? Is it newspapers, online?
Mostly online. I get just like from you, I get great updates, with online newsletters. I subscribe to a lot of different papers, just again, looking at the news and the internet, but most of it's online.
Okay, perfect. That's the last one. So, last question is, where can people find you?
They can look us up at lng.com. We're also on Instagram and Facebook. My cell number is 780-498-2187. So we'd love to help you out.
Thanks for doing this today, Alan.
Okay. Well, thanks for having me.